We welcome you to this edition of Night Shift. Eric Lopez alongside Bryson Turner is on this episode. We will preview the 50th season of UCF men's soccer. You will hear from Scott Calabrese. Bryson and I will discuss the outlook for the men's soccer team in 2025. Who will they miss more, Anderson Rosa or Luca Dorado? Bryson and I will debate that as far as who's the better player of the two, too. That and much more coming up on this edition of Night Shift. Of course, your previous episode, we had the women's soccer preview episode there. And then, of course, women's soccer season underway. And then, of course, volleyball just around the corner. We'll have a volleyball preview coming up in the future as well. But Bryson, I mentioned it, 50th season of UCF men's soccer gets going this week. And boy, they're not going soft in there as they're going to open up on the road and a tough stretch to start the year. But that's how Scott Calabrese would have it no other way.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is a guy that schedules 2 ACC opponents on the road to start the season, and it's a regular for him to see stuff like that. So this is a coach. He sort of reminds me of, ironically, the coach that started UCF soccer to begin with, Jim Rudy, because he was arguably one of the bigger names, at least on the women's side of soccer. He had very high standards, and I think the same goes to show with Scott Calabrese on the men's side. And I think he knows the type of opportunity that men's soccer provides him, and he is just utilizing all of it to his advantage. He's very passionate about the sport. He's been very vocal about the 21st century model. I'm sure we can get into that a teeny bit, because there has been news on that front. But yeah, absolutely. Coach Calabrese is really leading this program and will not let up, even if a couple of major players have left. He's done it before. He had a major striker with Cal Jennings. He graduated. That paved the way for Luca Dorado. And now he's on to whatever's next in terms of, how he scores.
Recently at UCF Fall Media Day, Scott Calabrese spoke to the press, the local media there, and discussed a lot about his team, including, as I asked him, life without Luca Dorado and Anderson Rosa, two of the greats to wear the black and gold, have moved on and graduated. As a result, some interesting questions on this year's team. Those are some of the topics Scott Calabrese addressed here on his media availability. Here now is the head coach of the UCF men's soccer, Scott Calabrese.
Coach, I'll start. Obviously, this is the post-Luca Dorado, Anderson Rosa. It's kind of weird to see the roster, not them listed there. What's that been like for you, having those two leaders not be around, but now you have other guys to step into those roles?
I think this is like the natural evolution that you see in college sports. I think it's one of the reasons that college sports is such a breeding ground to develop young people, right? And so, obviously, Anderson and Luca were so important in our program, but when they arrived, they were young players and young men and needed to develop into leaders and into better people, better players. And I think what we see is the same thing happening within our team now. And there are other people who now are stepping into that role and are doing it at a really high level. Some of them, the reason they're in the room today is because Juanvi, Drew, and Gwen are 3 guys that have done an incredible job already. And that process has been ongoing from the time that they got here as young people and, were exposed to the culture, started to really both integrate and then add to the culture. And now they're the ones driving the culture. So we've had and the great thing is it's not just them. They have a whole group of people behind them who support them. We're driving the culture. And so obviously it's exciting when we see Luca and Anderson come here and then move on to the next phase of their lives and have success. I think that is so meaningful to us and meaningful to their teammates. And then it gives this opportunity for others.
despite his injury last year, Luka led the team in goals. And of course, you know, we've known what you've done with Cal Jennings and then what you did with Luka. So what does the future look like now in terms of goal scoring for you guys? Now you go about that.
Yeah, I think it's exciting because I think with changes in how college sports are resourced, right? You see an ability from us as a program to attract really high level players. And so I think we've got multiple players within our team that can score goals and that can create chances. I think our attack this year, there'll be some familiar faces. Drew is in the room, right? And Drew's been with us for a few years, is a goal scorer, had one the other night, and really smart, times his runs well, dangerous in the box. And then we have other players as well. And I think we have different profiles. So whereas I think Luka was a certain profile of player where he stayed on the last line, was more around the top of the box, I think we have players that are maybe a little bit more in behind players. And then I think we can also make some changes, and then you have maybe more of a target nine. So a player you'd play into, players can get around him, he attracts the back line for your opponent, and then now there's space in behind. And I think we have in Claudel a player who plays differently to both the players we have and to Luka. So I think we're going to be dangerous in the final third, but I think it's going to look a little bit different because you have different players with different capabilities and different strengths.
Coach, you talked on developing players. What's it been like to develop players from different countries? I mean, everybody coming together. How does that work with team chemistry, and how can you guys get accustomed to each other?
So the very first thing that I think our group does an incredible job of is they make people feel welcome. So it's really, I'm amazed at some of the guys that come over here. English is not their first language. The culture is so different. Like, to be that brave to say, okay, I'm going to leave this environment that I'm in where I'm really comfortable and I'm going to stretch myself. I have so much respect for that, and I think our players do. And we have a group of players now, older players that have been through it, and they remember and they talk about, like, when I arrived, this is how I was treated, and the moment I arrived on campus, how I was made to feel by the players that were here, immediately they feel at home. And I think that is really special, and it's something that's our guys do an incredible job of. And then once you feel at home and you feel like you belong, you're willing to do so much for your teammates. And I think we have a really strong bond that this group has developed over the summer. Exactly what you're talking about, which is how do you bring people together? Well, you spend a lot of time with each other, you get to know each other, you build really good relationships, and then now you're able to perform at a really high level because you have incredible bonds. So this is a huge strength of ours, and I think it makes us better when you bring players from different footballing backgrounds as well, right? So not just the cultural differences, but you bring players from different footballing backgrounds and you bring them together and you put them all on the same page. Some of the things that can come from that are exciting and make, I think, the way we play really fun to watch. And I think it's a real strength that we have.
Coach, what would you say is the team's biggest strength heading into the season?
It's still really early, right? I think we're still learning about this group, but I think for this year, it's gonna be that we are collectively like one unit, one group, right? And that we're really cohesive in terms of, actually, let me find a better word. We're connected. We're connected because that is off the field in terms of the relationships, and then that's on the field and the relationships that we have on the field. And I think when I look at this group, I honestly think from a parity standpoint, like, there are so many good players within our group. And so there's not this huge difference between, there's no number 28 and number 1, right? It's just, there's such a high level throughout the group. And I think the strength of that is going to be that we're going to be really connected. We're going to be able to rely on more than 11 players. We're going to need more than 11 players. I think we're going to have it.
Okay, we'll go right here and then Shane.
Yeah, Coach, just, you mentioned bond. That's one thing, 2-part question here. How have you found ways to bond with your team off the pitch in the preseason? And then early on, you mentioned you're kind of looking to see what your team's going to be. Have you found an identity that you can kind of tell us about yet?
So bonding, so it's been happening for 6 weeks, right? These guys come in summer B and they start that process. The hard part is we're not allowed to be a part of it really. And so what that void creates is an opportunity for leaders to step in and to make sure that we're headed in the right direction. And the 3 guys in the room that you'll speak to, they were really key to that and did an incredible job. Since we've gotten together, we did a couple things with this group. We did an exercise called Hype Man, and it's really a cool exercise because what happens is you play 28 guys, and they play rock, paper, scissors individually. So you and I match up against each other, right? You win, and then now I'm your hype man. And so my job is as you go and you challenge somebody else, I build you up, right? And I just give you positive energy. And then when you win again, you get that person to join you and their hype man. And so by the end of it, you've got a whole group, just 2 players facing off to win, and you've got 13 people on each just behind them. And it's, okay, what does that feel like? If you're like receiving this positive energy from your teammates. And I think that's a fun exercise. Gwen, did you win that one? I did. Hype man winner, right there. Rock, paper, scissors. He's got a talent for it. And we've created some environments. We played Jeopardy as well. So we had a little team Jeopardy with the staff and the players. So we create these opportunities to get to know each other outside the field. And I think maybe coaching, it used to be like you're gonna stay arm's length from me and we're gonna have this very professional relationship. And I think it's really artificial that we've created that. And we have the opportunity now, we coach differently. And I think the players respond better to having a more real relationship with coaches and with each other. So that's been key. A lot of it's quite natural, but then sometimes we'll throw in something fun like that.
Coach, you got 10 days of prep before you kick this thing off, a road trip to North Carolina.
Yeah.
2 really solid games, but you get a top 10 in the second. What are the challenges in that opening road trip?
Yeah, I think it's the type of games we want, right? It's the top of college soccer. That's where we want to be. Obviously, the challenge is it's a really good opponent, and you get pushed at the level that you find out a lot about who you are as a team and as a program. And there's no doubt North Carolina, Wake Forest, they're going to expose some things that maybe we're not even clear we need to work on yet. So I think those games are big games that our players really get excited for. So I don't think motivation is ever going to be an issue when it comes to a game like that. They are absolutely dying to play teams at that level because I think this is a team that is that level and can be that level. So we've got to go there. We've got to be incredibly well prepared. We've done it before. I think it's one of the reasons why we've had some really good years because we've gone away from home and we've played some of these top teams. 2 years ago, we went and beat Clemson. And that set up a heck of a year where immediately when you realize when you play the top and you see, okay, we are right there, then you have that understanding like we can play at this level and we can win at this level and we can do something. So I think it's a really important road trip for us.
Coach, this year marks 50 years for UCF men's soccer, 50th season. Just what has it meant to you to reach that mark this season, and if you guys have gotten a chance to talk to any of you guys about that?
We haven't discussed it as a team. I think it's exciting. I personally just love that I'm a part of trying to elevate UCF men's soccer and being part of that history, right? And I think this group can be a part of that history. I feel real responsibility to the alumni who want us to be great, right? Want to be really proud of us. So, I mean, I think the way that we honor that is to be our absolute best and make that group that's played before us really proud of how we compete and the level we compete at, and try to represent them in the best way possible. So yeah, it's exciting. We want to leave our mark.
Coach,
Last one for Andrew here.
2 seasons ago, you guys had a historic season, ranked number 1 in the polls. You know what it takes to get there. What does this team have that could possibly lead you guys to among being the top in the country again?
Yeah, I think 2 things come to mind from that season. I think this team has a depth to it that will allow us to have the energy to play throughout the season. And I think when I look at that season and the level we reached was really high. And then how do you sustain it? And how do you then have the postseason that you want? You had to get to the postseason, right? And that's hard. That's very difficult. So we need to get there. And then the depth of ability within this team to be able to continue. And then what I do think we had with that team that we will have again with this team, and of course we haven't played a counting game yet, so we're going to be tested. We're going to be tested in a big way. Is I think we're a group that's really connected, and that's going to be key.
And that was Coach Calabrese from the Fall Media Day. Of course, you could watch those interviews on our YouTube channel on Night Shift. And Bryson, interesting news, obviously, on Coach Calabrese. It was shortly after Fall Media Day that it was announced that Scott Calabrese had agreed to an extension through 2029 with UCF. So he will be here for the long haul. Of course, he's gone through a lot, seeing the transition. Remember, this is a men's soccer program. While everybody other sport was moving to the Big 12, men's soccer had to find a home after the American and have some options. They landed on the Sun Belt. That's where they're at right now. Interesting to see what happens to men's soccer, which we'll get to momentarily. But Scott Calabrese, Terry Mahajer, smart man, locking up here, Coach Calabrese long-term. Your thoughts here on Coach Calabrese here and what he had to say from Media Day and now getting that extension through 2029.
It's a very smart decision. I mean, despite the postseason struggles that Coach Calabrese has experienced so far in the Sun Belt era, I think that it is still a very strong conference for them. It's one of the stronger conferences in the league. I think last year was probably the only blip, I would argue, where maybe it wasn't like the 3rd strongest conference in college soccer. I would argue, and so I think keeping Calabrese around is very important to keep them on level with that, because they're still among like the top 3, 4, like they're right there with the likes of Marshall and West Virginia, James Madison, what have you. And given how Coach Calabrese has talked about how unpredictable college soccer could be, like let's not forget we're coming off of a college men's soccer season where Vermont went on a run and won a national championship. So soccer is a sport that can honestly go back and forth. And sometimes a really good team can just have a bad day and end up losing. And that's it. That's the end of their season. Heck, this is the same UCF men's soccer program that was number 1 at one point. So I think if you're a coach that's able to get your team that high, you give him a good amount of leeway, especially if he shows that he's still maintaining that sense of competitiveness. And I believe, and I've heard that, and as we've heard around, I think competitiveness is a really big thing with head coaches in this UCF athletics program. So as long as he's still doing that, then he has a place here. So you might as well lock him up for the long term, especially given the potential changes that the college soccer world it could undergo.
A lot of new faces on this roster. Despite that, Bryson, the Sun Belt coaches giving UCF some respect, picked 3rd in the preseason poll. What'd you make of that preseason poll from the Sun Belt?
I'm not surprised by that at all. The 2 West Virginia schools, I think, are absolutely the class of the Sun Belt Conference. There's no mistaking that whatsoever. really I would argue that UCF is much more in line with Kentucky, I think, where they're definitely not on the level of the West Virginia schools, but they are still very much like, I don't want to, it's not blue bloods, but very solid programs at the men's soccer level. They can have their off years at times. I've seen Kentucky have their off years, but when they're good, they're really good. So I think that's a very solid ranking, especially since UCF is still made some great additions both internationally and from the transfer portal. And let's not forget that some of the people that they are returning still developed quite well, and they also managed to get another year for goalkeeper Juanvi Munoz. So having an experienced goalkeeper, I think, is also very much a factor in a decision like that.
We'll hear from Juanvi Munoz later on this episode on that. Now, you mentioned some of those teams, and you've teased this, the 21st century model. For those that are not aware, that are casuals, Kyle, let's discuss and explain what could be on the horizon and why this extension to Calabrese is significant, Bryson, in my view, because the sport of men's soccer might change as early as after this year. Tell us what it's been going on, because you've been following this it's been reported by various outlets on the future, perhaps, of men's soccer as college athletics continues to change. And so much chatter and speculation. Will college sports split away from the NCAA as far as the football, American football discussion has taken place from time to time? Well, this version of football, soccer, might beat them to the punch. Discuss some of the changes that could be ahead for men's soccer.
Well, I'm sure that a certain amount of casuals will talk about how, when we talk about college football, they'll be like, oh, the Big Ten and the SEC are going to break away and form their own league. Well, there's a potential that college soccer could actually do that because U.S. soccer has been coming in. And the thing is that the college soccer season as it stands right now does not line up with the rest of the soccer season around the globe, which is actually roughly starting about now, actually. It's very early in the international soccer season right now, but they go a lot longer. They go into next year. They're very much like, I think it's kind of similar to how the NBA and the NHL, how their seasonal calendar kind of is around that same calendar. But men's college soccer, it stops at the end of this semester, which of course throws into questions about, transferring to different teams and how signings work and all that stuff. So the 21st century model would essentially bring men's soccer to that style, essentially put it on the calendar with the rest of the soccer space internationally, and allow colleges to better acquire and transfer players, what have you. And so U.S. soccer is helping step in to do that, since the NCAA, we've seen what they are like with football. Similar case with soccer. Of course, that can't exactly do that with everybody, or at least as it stands right now. From what we've seen from the articles on the matter, there's a 32 team 4-region structure that was a part of the initial initiative, which includes all of the ACC teams, all Big Ten teams, as well as West Virginia, Oregon State, San Diego State, South Carolina, Kentucky, and UCF. So essentially, the Power 4 men's soccer programs are all a part of this deal, at least as far as the initiative. This is based on a Sportico article from February 23rd, 2025. There's been updates on it, updates since then, but that's sort of been the discussions like that. So we'll see from an implementation standpoint how this could go. If this works, maybe it could be next season, maybe it could be in 2 seasons. But there seems to be some smoke to this fire, Eric, where college soccer, at least from a Power 4 standpoint, could very well change. Maybe there's more, that maybe other teams could join up, but college soccer could potentially be undergoing some major changes. All the talk about the changes in football, soccer could actually be doing it.
Yeah, I think they might be ahead of the curve. And you mentioned the timeline. It could be as early as next year. It could be in 2 years, where U.S. soccer, not the NCAA, is running this, which could change the format of the tournament, could change the format of the scheduling. Also worth noting, this will also mean that soccer would become a 2-semester sport. In other words, the regular season would stretch from the fall into the spring. Because one of the complaints from a lot of soccer coaches and people as far as the U.S. soccer from a developmental standpoint is it's hard to develop players and cram in a fall season where you're trying to fit in 2 to 3 matches a week and there are injuries and things like that. Whereas you stretch this out to 2 semesters, you could stretch it out to maybe 1 match a week, more time for development. Those are the pros of those moves. I think the question is financially, can you afford to have a 2-semester sport in men's soccer with the other sports? That's a lengthy conversation. One thing I don't understand about the report that you read, you mentioned the power conference schools that are involved. That makes a lot of sense. But there are some outliers in there that you mentioned that could be part of this, even though they're not a power school, like I believe San Diego State you referenced.
Well, San Diego State actually, I believe, played men's soccer with the Pac-12. That was an affiliate, just like how UCF and West Virginia are affiliate schools with the Sun Belt. The men's soccer team for San Diego State has been competing in the Pac-12, if I'm not mistaken. They're an affiliate member in the WAC
that makes sense. When the Pac-12 existed as a power league, yeah, I got you now.
Yeah. So plus San Diego State has also kind of been a little bit in the Pac-12 orbit anyway. And of course their history with men's soccer is relatively solid as well. So yeah, they're a part. But yeah, so San Diego State is a part of this. The Power 4 program, San Diego State's in that orbit. So yeah, but that being said, there are some mid-major soccer programs that are not a part of this. Vermont just won an NCAA championship, and obviously they're not a part of this.
Marshall won it a few years ago and played for another one. So that's the other one that comes to mind.
Yes, exactly. So again, this was a Sportico article that was released back in February. There's still a lot to talk about. There a lot of talk that's definitely happened since then, and probably has happened since that is going to happen before this goes down. But it'll be very interesting to see who buys in to this type of thing. Could we see all of college soccer move along like this? Will it just be the power programs? There's still a lot to figure out in terms of how this works, whether it's from a regional structure standpoint or anything like that. But it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how it all turns out. But Coach Calabrese has said repeatedly about how this is something he's been wanting, and so it makes all the sense that UCF has been on this from pretty early on.
Well, and that's the thing from a UCF perspective. The Scott Calabrese extension going through 2029 announcement tells you that UCF is in full support of whatever the future holds. Would you agree with that? That this agreement, this announcement, this Calabrese extension tells you that UCF is on board for wherever men's soccer is headed. They're not going to take a step back. They're going to compete at the highest level. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I think they already honestly said that with their move to the Sun Belt. They could have with the options that they had. I remember that Jeff and I did an article about this. They could have tried to remain in the American, which wouldn't have been all that bad. FIU is there. We
debated this. Yeah, I do recall this.
They could have stayed back. They could have just gone to the A-Sun and just been able to stay cheap and travel locally, but it would have been a mid-major conference. But no, they went to the Sun Belt, which is one of the stronger teams. It's where other Power 4 soccer programs whose conferences don't have men's soccer have their teams. So at least on the eastern side of the country. So the Sun Belt was where UCF needed to go if it wanted to play the highest level soccer, and that is where they went. So I think they've already made that decision long ago. And I think having Coach Calabrese here is a big reason for why they felt confident in doing that move.
All right. So that's the story about UCF men's soccer in the future. Let's get into the now, Bryson, and let's talk about this team this year. They're going to be a preseason number 3 in the Sun Belt. They're going to open the season on the road at North Carolina. And I think the big question as we look into this season, Bryson, it's really simple. UCF has a lot of new faces on this roster, especially when you look at losing a great Luca Dorado at forward and losing Anderson Rosa defensively. both are standout headliners. They're not the only players they lost. There's other significant losses, especially up front in the forwards where I think there's more questions. However, those are the two marquee players that have been a part of this big success for UCF since 2021. My question to you first, Bryson, in your mind, which one are you more worried about UCF will miss more, Anderson Rosa or Luca Dorado?
I think Rosa. And the reason I say that is because Calabrese has already shown that he can get another striker. Because Cal Jennings, because he lost Cal Jennings and then he replaced him with Luca Dorado. He's done it before. He can easily do it again. Heck, we've seen Drew Hansen. Like he ended up having that brace against Kentucky last season. I think there's definitely some stuff there. Clarence Audor is still here as well at forward. He could obviously step up as well. He went and got 3 forwards in the transfer portal that could look promising as well. I think Coach Calabrese is going to find a new striker or be a bit more diversified with his scoring. There's also a chance of that. They don't go through one guy as much as they did before with Jennings and Dorado. Who knows? But Rosa was the one that got drafted in the MLS Super Draft. Dorado did not. Rosa also played more. I think he finished, like, he never missed a single game. The leadership presence of Anderson Rosa, I think, is bigger than Dorado's. So and he anchored that back line. So I would say they're going to miss Rosa the most. I would think, even if it's just from a leadership standpoint, but also because Calabrese has been able to figure out offense before, but the back line can sometimes be a bit of a tougher nut to crack.
And he was the captain, as you mentioned. So with that in mind, who are some names to watch that could help fill the holes in the back line for Anderson Rosa? Now, the good news is they do have some returners that have experience.
Absolutely, they do. Alex Smith, transfer out of Georgia Southern. I had thought that he was going to run out of eligibility after last year, but no, he is back this year. He played over 1,000 minutes in the back line last season, so he will be back. You also have Gwendell DeGorse, who is coming back for his second season. He started all 13 games he played over 1,100 minutes. Coach Calabrese clearly trusts him out there with the ball. So that is definitely going to be someone I think he's going to keep an eye on there. Let's see. We also have a defense. Joey Muller is also back. Midfielder / defender. He can pull back and play that. I've heard some good things out of Jen Hewlett, by the way. I think Gwendell was talking about him. He is from a freshman out of Bristol, England, who played for Southampton's U21 team. So that is also someone to watch as well. We also have a guy who played professional ball with Norway, a midfielder defender named Petter Wingsternis. If I mispronounce that, I will try to learn that. So, and then Gwendell was also very complimentary, or it might have been Juanvi. One of them was very complimentary of Siryu Ono, who is coming from a freshman coming out of Japan. That's forward midfield. But Arne Michels is also back from Germany. So there's several moves. There's a lot of new faces on the defense. But I think with how Coach Calabrese recruits internationally, I think finding talent is not the problem from a Coach Calabrese standpoint, because he's really good at recruiting internationally.
Well, you mentioned one name that's back that's going to help their defense and help the defense is Juanvi Munoz, the goalkeeper, who missed a good chunk of last season due to injury, which was kind of the big storyline that derailed UCF's expectations and goals last season. His injuries really played a role in them missing the NCAA tournament. But Juanvi Munoz is back, and he's back with motivation. Bryce and I had a chance to catch up with Juanvi Munoz to talk about him being back this year and being one of the veterans now on this team and his outlook for this upcoming season. Here is UCF goalkeeper, Juanvi Munoz.
All right, Juanvi, welcome back. Your senior season. How do you feel?
Excited. Really, really excited. I feel really excited. Obviously, my last season here, so I wanna try to do my best.
How does it feel to be a veteran and one of the leaders now on the team. I mean, it seemed like only yesterday you were the youngster.
Yeah.
With Anderson and Luke and some of the other veterans that are around. Now you're one of the veterans. What does that feel like?
Well, for me, it's an honor. For me being at UCF here, I really feel like identified with the standards. So for me, it's an honor to be here and be one of the leaders. It means a lot for me. So I just want to try to bring all my experience to the new guys, to the newcomers. So when I leave, they know the standards, the UCF standards that we have, and we can achieve some trophies with that.
Last season, of course, was marked by your injury, kept you out for quite a while. How does it feel now? And how do you feel healthy going into this last season?
Well, as I said, I feel really excited, and I feel healthy. I feel stronger than ever, and I think that I can give a lot of positive vibes to the team, so everyone can be excited and motivated for this season.
You excited to be able to go into your last season healthy and get a chance to play the full year?
Of course, yeah. I mean, I want to play everything that I can, but if that's not the case, I want to help others to be healthy, to be more prepared, for these college soccer games that are really, really intense. So.
What did you learn from last season?
Right, from last season, I mean, for me it was tough because I got injured and it wasn't what I expected, because the last season that we had, we were the number one in the nation. And that season I wanted to prove something to UCF and to all the fans that were coming. That I want to say, okay, so let's achieve something, But for this season, I don't know. I don't really know what to say. We're really, really excited to play and to start winning games.
Speak of the guys in front of you defensively. I feel like that's where the experience you got with some of the guys returning there, while the offensive guys kind of figure out who they are. But it feels like you feel like your defense this year can kind of carry the load here until, especially with the offense kind of figuring itself out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I really feel secure with the guys that are in the defense line. We got Wen is one of our captains as well. We got Jem, Arne, Mateus. So we have really good center backs back there, and I think that everyone is really confident with them. Then talk about our left backs and right back. We got Alex Smith. I think that he's playing for his 5th year as well, so he has a lot of experience as well. He was playing for Joe Southern. Then Gavi Velez, and then the new Finnish guy, Mikael. They all come from really good teams, and I think that everyone can bring his own experience.
With so many new people on the team this time around, who have you seen really step up and is in store for a real big year?
Well, I think that everyone in the team, all of the newcomers, they have a really good level. That's why they're here, because we want to achieve big things. But I don't know, if I have to say one player, I would say Sergio, because he's one of the youngest players. Well, to say the youngest players in the team. And I think that he has a really good personality. He's he always wants to get in the box and cross and stuff. So I'm really happy for that. I'm really happy for him. Yeah.
So this year marks 50 years for UCF men's soccer, and there's been a lot of iconic goalkeepers across this entire time. What has that legacy meant to you? As you got a chance to speak to alumni about that?
Well, for me, being part of the UCF men's soccer history for me means a lot. I always wanted to come here. When Jamie Davis called me, I couldn't say no. The way that they were talking to me about UCF, I was like, I have to come here. I have to come here because the values, the way the way that we play as well, I feel really identified with it. So for me, it means a lot. It means a lot.
So last season, you guys was in the first round of the Sun Belt tournament, same result as in that tournament as the year before. What do you think this team needs to do in order to see some improvement and step up in the postseason?
Well, obviously, we need everyone to be healthy and prepare for everything, because teams the conference in the Sun Belt Conference, everyone is it's good. We got a lot of teams that are really good. Marshall played the final, the NCAA tournament. Got West Virginia that has been number 1 in the nation as well. Kentucky, Old Dominion. So, all of these teams are really good. So we have to be really prepared for it.
Well, yeah, I mean, you guys got Marshall to end the regular season this time around on the road, so that'll definitely be something right there. So who has stepped up in this team as far as leadership goes with Anderson and Luca now gone? Who's really stepped up leadership-wise?
Well, obviously we have our leadership group. Drew is there, Joey, Timothy Arias, Gwen, and I are in that leadership group. But I think that a lot of players are stepping up. One of them is Jem, one of the center backs. He has his voice is really potential. He has a lot of energy as well. He has a lot of experience. He was playing for Southampton, so. But no, every player has to contribute something, in the team. Everyone has experience, and everyone has to step up.
How would you describe your style of play as a goalkeeper?
I think that we like to play from the back, and I think that I'm a super keeper. I like to play with my feet. I like to be involved with the defense line. Not just with the defense line, just with the whole team. I think that we like to play from the build-up. We like to build up and play short. But obviously we know how to play long as well, look the back of the defenders. And, but we like to dominate. And that's our DNA. We have to dominate, be disciplined, and have the right intensity to win games.
What's this team need to do now between now and your road trip to North Carolina to start the season to be where it wants to be?
Well, I mean, we have to be really aware that we're going to play against really good teams, and we have to be in a high level. So we have to train with the right intensity as well, because I think that the way that you train is the way that you're gonna play games.
All right, and that was Juanvi Munoz talking to me and Bryson. Bryson, your thoughts here? I mentioned it prior to the interview. His injury, he got hurt in the Wake Forest. Luca Dorado got hurt in the Wake Forest match. There was a marquee game, regular season game in September last year. I called that match. Of course, Juanvi Munoz got hurt around the same time period, missed a chunk of the season. So did Dorado. But let's talk about Juanvi first. That hurt their season in a lot of ways. Now he's back. What's your takeaway in seeing him and talking to him going into this year, which I think he's a key factor in this team? He is now a veteran on this team with a lot of new faces. He's one of the familiar faces, and a healthy Juanvi Munoz who looked like was going to take his play into the next level with his growth throughout his career here could be the key to this year for the Knights.
Oh, absolutely. I think him being that leadership presence is very important. I think I talked about this earlier. Experience in goal, I think, is a very important thing to have. And you look at the replacement that they had last year in goal for Juanvi, Shane Wright. He was a redshirt freshman at the time. He started 7 games. He ended up allowing 11 goals. In 11 goals, he went 2-3-2. Juanvi, during his portion of the season, was 5-3-1. I think there's a clear difference in the experience here. And the fact that Juanvi got another year too, because the way the international eligibility works can sometimes be a little bit weird. So there was a chance that Juanvi could not have come back this season from what I've seen. And so the fact that Juanvi is back, I think, is very, very crucial, because he is able to have that extra year of experience under his belt that maybe he couldn't have gotten if the eligibility wasn't granted. So having experience in goal, I think, is extremely important. And now Juanvi will be able to hopefully have a healthy full season back this time around, and I think have a very solid transition from a leadership standpoint as well, because Juanvi, I think, was still a fairly solid leader, even if Rosa and Dorado were still there last year. But having Juanvi stick around will be very good to help with the transition, just from a leadership standpoint. Because from what I've seen, there's been a bit of a leadership committee kind of open now. I think Calabrese was talking about how DeGorse, Drew Hansen, and Juanvi all kind of had some kind of leadership role, bit of more of a group effort this time around.
So that's the story on the back end and on defense for UCF. Let's talk about the offense. We mentioned Luca Dorado graduation, one of the great goal scorers of all time. You mentioned Drew Henson. Drew Henson's figures to be one of the leading candidates to be one of the main goal scorers for this team, but he not necessarily have to be the only one, Bryson. Who are some players, let's start at the forwards, that you think stand out that could help Drew Hansen and be that next great goal scorer that, again, this is a Calabrese, since Calabrese has been here, UCF has been one of the most exciting and top offenses in college soccer. Paul Souders, the associate head coach who helps run the offense, runs the offense really, has been a big factor in that. You look back to the Matias Pacillo when they inherited him, and of course the great Cal Jennings blossomed under this system, and of course Luca Dorado. But they're not the only ones. So give us some names. You mentioned Drew Hansen. Do you think he will be the leading goal scorer on this team? Who are some other names that could be in the mix?
I think if there is a singular striker on this team that I think Hansen is the best candidate for it. I will say keep an eye on Clarence Alador because he led the team in assists last year with 7. But he did get 3 goals. I think he will definitely be a factor on the offense, even if it's more on the assist side. So whoever can get some chemistry with him will be very important. Very important. You have Malik Chaw, who's coming in from Virginia Tech in the transfer portal. A senior, scored 3 goals last year for the Hokies. We also have a couple of D2 arrivals that I think could be very interesting. There's Frederick. I remember Coach Calabrese talked about Claudel Ngobu, who is a forward out of Limestone University. If football fans are familiar with that name, DJ Black, wide receiver DJ Black came from that university. He was finished all conference first team last season, played and scored 6 goals with 7 assists across playing 1,427 minutes. So he also brings a lot of experience with him. I think that's really the big thing. If Hansen just doesn't have a lot of experience as somebody like Ngobu or Chaw do. So I feel like Hansen might be the direction they want to go because of his youth. I think it's really good to have to bring in people with experience like Ngobu, Chaw. They also brought in Frederick Benedieu from Coker University. He's more of an assist guy as well. 16 assists for him last season. So I think that will be helpful as well. Siriu Ono as well can play forward. He is from Japan. We talked about how Coach Calabrese loves to recruit internationally. He scored 15 goals last year and actually led the league that he was playing in. He played for the Oita Trinita U18 team. So that league he was in, he led the league in goals that year. So I think it's very interesting, Eric, because this is really the first time where I'm not really sure who's going to lead the team in goals this season. We could see Drew Hansen take control, but maybe we see somebody with experience in case Hansen needs some more time to develop.
Could be more balanced scoring. Again, you lose also an Emmanuel Baum, who was such a fast athlete there.
Absolutely.
To say the least. I like Alador myself. I do that's kind of who I'm going to lean towards. He's more of a playmaker, though. He reminds me a little bit more of a Gino Vivi type.
Yes.
There.
Absolutely.
Midfield. That's a key position, obviously. What's the outlook looking like in the midfield? They did lose some players, some through graduation, some players just moved on. So what do you see in the midfield?
The midfield is definitely somewhere where they're a little understated, if I'm being honest. Like, you have some forwards that are able to play midfield. Siriu Ono can play midfield. Frederick Benedieu, like I mentioned earlier, can play midfield. Sora Funakoshi can play midfield as well. He played in 13 matches.
He got some experience. Yeah, he got some experience last year. That could benefit him this year.
Yeah, he came off the bench quite a lot. So I think that will definitely be a benefit as well. That Norway guy I told you about, he can also play midfield. Honestly, midfield has a lot of versatility. If I'm being honest, there's a lot of people that has experience playing either up front or in the back line, but can come in and play midfield as well. As far as pure midfielders, we do have Ken Mwendo, who is coming in the transfer portal from NAIA school, Lindsey Wilson. He played in over 1,700 minutes last year and got 4 goals and four assists and finished all conference first team. So Hugo Veen is coming over from Limestone as well, alongside Ngobu. He finished all conference first team there, played over 1,200 minutes, scored 6 goals with two assists. So that will definitely be something to consider there as well. it'll be interesting to see who emerges here because I'm honestly not. You have Fabio Guerrero as well on the playing there as well. There really isn't anyone that truly sticks out to me at the midfield. Joey Muller can play midfielder as well. He plays both that and defender. It'll be interesting to see who emerges here because you could see some people because there's so much versatility here that you're not sure if the people that can play midfielder will play midfielder. And then aren't really a lot of true midfielders on this squad to really see, okay, who's going to work.
They like to move it around. Like sometimes Alwardor might line up towards the midfield and play there. So yeah, right. That's going to be interesting.
Gino Vivi was listed as a forward, but he acted more like a midfielder.
Correct.
So sometimes positionless. We've heard about positionless basketball. How about positionless soccer?
Correct. And they're going to go up tempo there. Let's go through the schedule here. It will open up at Thursday night at North Carolina. That is as marquee as it gets with the Tar Heels, which will be followed by on Sunday night. They'll be in Winston-Salem to take on top 10 ranked Wake Forest. They had a 1-1 draw last year in Orlando in that match. Carolina, UCF. So two of the powerhouse ACC. ACC is the dominant conference when it comes to men's soccer. So no surprise there. So the home opener for UCF men's soccer will not be until August 27th when UCF will host UTRGV Grand Valley. On that Wednesday night, they will host UNC Greensboro and then go to Tampa Thursday, September 4th to take on the Bulls. They will host Jacksonville on Thursday, September 11th before they begin Sun Belt Conference play. Before we get into conference, what do you have? What do you circled there as far as the non-conference that you're intrigued to see?
I am intrigued to see UNC Greensboro because the reason I say that is because we already know the ACC is the top college conference in the nation at this point. If you're playing an ACC opponent, you are going to be putting your best foot forward. And Coach Calabrese is really testing these players early. UNC Greensboro, meanwhile, much more understated team. They finished last season 38 in the RPI. They actually won the regular season championship in the SoCon, and the only reason they did not make the NCAA tournament is that they lost in the SoCon semifinal to Furman on penalty kicks. So they got upset in the conference tournament. They didn't end up making the NCAA tournament, but they still ended up finishing very high in the RPI. So I think UNC Greensboro could be a very sneaky opponent for this Knight squad this time around. And let's face it, if you're going up against an ACC team, you're already going to be on your toes. But UNC Greensboro, that's somewhere you don't want to let your guard down. But after going up against those ACC opponents, you wonder, how do you respond after that? So that'll be an interesting test for them.
Important to get some results in the non-conference. They dug themselves a hole last year in the non-conference, not getting that marquee win. Remember 2 years ago, they opened the season at Clemson and beat Clemson, who ended up being a College Cup team. That really jump-started that UCF season that got them to peak all the way up to the number 1 ranking in the country during that season. Last year, they didn't have that marquee win in the non-conference, and that's one of the remaining reasons they were left out of the NCAA tournament. So I think that is something to watch from a non-conference schedule. Obviously, the ACC matchups, if you could somehow get a split there or something or a draw, that would be huge. But you mentioned it, the Greensboro match is pretty important because that's a sneaky good top 50 potential RPI game there. They will begin Sun Belt Conference play Friday night, September 19th at Kentucky. You mentioned Kentucky earlier. That's a borderline NCAA tournament program. The home opener, doesn't get bigger than this. Sunday night, September 28th, number 16 ranked West Virginia will be in attendance for a Sunday night 7:00 game. Interesting, and we'll get to the note on the scheduling there. Sunday night. October 4th, UCF goes to South Carolina. Then Friday night, October 10th, UCF will host Georgia Southern. UCF will have then playing Bradley. Interesting. They sneak in a match against Bradley on October the 14th. There, I don't think that's a conference game, Bryce. I think that's a midweek. Is not a conference?
Yeah, it's a midweek. Bradley plays in the Missouri Valley.
Interesting. Random midweek non-conference there. Then UCF will host Old Dominion on October 18th. They will go to Old Dominion, I should say, host JMU Wednesday, October 22nd. They will be at Georgia State October 26th on a Sunday. Halloween night, once again, UCF will be playing at home on Halloween, Bryson, one of your favorite holidays. Halloween, baby. They'll host Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, interesting. I looked on the schedule, by the way. Bradley is when the team is going to be hosting their senior night. So
interesting. I guess they didn't want to have senior night on Halloween. I guess.
I imagine not.
JMU, by the way, is the space game.
Yes.
So that's their big jersey there. The regular season will finish UCF at Marshall, top 10 ranked Marshall, powerhouse in Huntington. Remember, they had a massive 1 versus 2 matchup a couple of years ago in Huntington where West Virginia, Marshall won. I think it was controversial. UCF looked like had scored, but it was a nullified goal or something like that. You remember that? It was
I do. It was a nullified goal because what happened is there was a UCF player that hung back, but I think they were behind the goal or something like that. And then they came back, stole the ball.
Stole the ball from the goalkeeper,
Yeah, it was a very controversial play. I think that but I think it's because he was initially, I think, out of bounds or something like that to start with, that the goal ended up being nullified. It was a really creative play. And I think if he had started it within bounds, I think it would have counted. It just wasn't meant to be, unfortunately, but a very creative play indeed.
So they'll have that rematch then, the regular season. Then the Sun Belt tournament will begin November 9th through the 16th. The format, any news on the format?
No news on the format. It is pretty much as normal. It's on campus, it's on campus sites and campus sites. Number
top
1
2 seeds, I believe, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's the top 2 seeds. The first round, the semifinals, will be at the number 1 and number 2 seed sites. And then I believe the championship is hosted by the higher seeded team. So that is no change. No change there. One interesting thing about the Sun Belt schedule that I noticed, West Virginia and Marshall are not back-to-back this season. The past 2 seasons, UCF has had to play these 2 powerhouse West Virginia teams back-to-back. That is not the case anymore. Now, facing Kentucky and West Virginia back-to-back is certainly no cakewalk to start the conference play, to be sure. But that I do think it's definitely a bit different to now not have to go up against West Virginia and Marshall back-to-back. That being said, though, ending the season with Marshall is a very tall order, especially if you're in a position where you need a win if you want to up your reputation in the RPI. Also, do not sleep on James Madison. Finished 69 in the RPI last year. James Madison's been a bit of a bugaboo for this UCF team in the Sun Belt era so far. So that is also someone that a program I am definitely not overlooking.
I would agree. They cost UCF the regular season title a couple of years ago in the season finale there. I also noticed, I don't know if you picked up on the more Friday night conference games than I remember the last couple of years. The last couple of years, there was a lot of Saturday games, mostly Saturdays. This year, they've split it up more. It's more spread out. There's midweeks, which there was a few midweeks in the last couple of years, so that's no surprise. But there's a couple of Tuesday, Wednesdays, but there's a few Fridays, a couple of Sundays. So it's not just Saturdays. Interesting quirk in the scheduling there on the date, as far as the day of the week.
Yeah, I think so. There's still 3 Friday games. There isn't really a set date.
Hey, that's interesting to me. That's because to me, I thought the last couple of years, it was mostly Saturdays. You would have a midweek and then a Saturday. Now, Saturday nights, I know this because I called a couple Saturday games. It's college football Saturday. So I wonder if they kind of spreading this out a little bit more to avoid going up against college football, which I think would be smart. And then, Sundays usually is women's soccer day. So maybe that they're trying to avoid that, but there are some Sunday nights. So interesting, a little more spread out, whereas women's soccer is very consistent Thursday, Sunday. Sunbelt doing a little variety here on the calendar. So it's going to be a little creative on there. A couple things before we wrap up. Mentioned earlier, preseason pick 3rd for UCF men's soccer. Is that, if you had to make a prediction right now, would you think they'll do better than that? Worse than that? I'm not going to give you the option to push. So pick one or the other. What do you think is more likely based on what you know and how you're feeling about going into the season?
I think that if we don't finish third, then it's more likely we finish fourth. I think we are definitely going to finish in the 3-4-5 range. The
So you like
range,
Marshall? You believe Marshall, West Virginia, two best teams.
I think so. Marshall and West Virginia are very good year in and year out. I mean, if we can steal one, because we did tie with West Virginia when they were here last time. So that
one of the largest attended men's soccer games ever, highly ranked top. I believe it was a top 10 showdown, one of the most memorable matchups. Yeah.
Yes. So I think So that'll be interesting. I think that's going to be UCF's best opportunity to try to maybe get itself to finish in second. But going to Marshall, unless Marshall already locked up the conference title at that point. But say for whatever reason Marshall and UCF play with the conference title on the line, even if UCF is in contention or not, I think I would give it to Marshall on the road unless they just have fallen off this year. So as it stands right now, I think third is a very solid place. And then depending on what happens against Kentucky, that could determine if UCF finishes third or fourth.
Well, and that could be significant because that's probably your bubble range for the NCAA tournament if you can finish that high. And get the result.
Well, it depends on what Kentucky and them do in the non-conference schedule. I think that's going to be very important because the Sun Belt can be a conference that can get as many. Because I remember in 2023, if I remember, I think not only because UCF got in the tournament alongside West Virginia, Kentucky, JMU, I think got in. I think Kentucky, if they didn't get in, it was close. So Sun Belt in 2023 actually had a good amount of bids. So I think depending on what the situation is from a conference standpoint, that and what each of them do in non-conference, that will be a determining factor, I think, in how many bids the Sun Belt can get. They could be anywhere from 2 to 6.
This is the 50th season of UCF men's soccer. 50th season. Let me ask you this question now. Full sport. Me and Bryson are working on a content that's going to come out next month on the 50th season of UCF soccer. It's going to be the all-time team, basically. There's no active players by rule. Give me a player on this roster, Bryson, that you think is a key player where at the end of the year you're saying, hey, this guy could be the new face of UCF soccer, or could be a guy that we're talking about in future, like all-decade teams, all-century teams, whatever. This is a guy to watch. Who is that?
I think the best chance of someone being that is Drew Hansen. Because I think the reason I say that is because the experienced players that we're getting in the transfer portal, I mean, we don't know what they're going to do this season. We genuinely do not know. It could be a crapshoot. But Juanvi Munoz, I think Juanvi Munoz might have the best chance at being like in that all-time team list if just after this season being done, because Munoz has been a very solid job in goal. But this is his last year. So, and it's all that last year. But I think Drew Hansen has exhibited enough promise in the early going that he's a redshirt sophomore, so he has 3 more years of eligibility left. I think there's enough time for Drew Hansen to potentially develop into somebody that, if they stay around, because that is also important, to be somebody we could potentially put onto. And the reason I don't say the international ones, by the way, is kind of like how with the MLB draft in baseball, how college baseball teams could always have a player get yoinked out by the MLB draft. In soccer, in that case, it's international leagues who will pull out their player if it means they can get them on their first team if they play really well. Look at Saku Heiskanen, who broke out in his first season with UCF and then signed with a professional team in his home country of Finland, I believe. So that's why I'm not saying the international one, because there's so much uncertainty there. But Drew Hansen, he's from Cleveland, North Carolina. He's already been here. He has a clear leadership role, I would say. So I think Drew Hansen has the most likelihood as of this moment.
You can hear our conversation, Maya, with Drew Hansen on our YouTube channel. And that'll also be on Bryson's men's soccer preview article on blackandgoldbanneret.com. Check that out, as well as Bryson's interview. Who else you interviewed? Gwen, who else did you interview?
I interviewed Gwendell DeGorse. He was also there as well, the defender. And I would argue he is probably the premier defender now that Anderson Rosa is gone. Alex Smith might have something to say about that, but I would say DeGorse is definitely there as well. Very much a leader on this squad, even though he's a sophomore.
Look for those two interviews on our YouTube channel at KnightShift, as well as in Bryson's article on the UCF men's soccer preview article on blackandgoldbanneret.com. Last question for you. Rosa and Dorado will be on this all-time team on our rosters. But here's a question for you. 7 years from now, they'll both, in theory, be eligible for the UCF Athletic Hall of Fame. Who would you give the pecking order to? Who would you pick of the two? If you can only pick one, hey, I think this guy was the better of the two players. Who would you pick?
I think I would go with Anderson Rosa at this moment. And the reason I say that is because he is currently playing professionally in the MLS with the Colorado Rapids. Luca Dorado is in the USL with the Birmingham Legion, last I checked. So I think Anderson Rosa's pro career will be something that pushes him a bit over the mark. Plus, I don't know how many defenders are represented at the minute. And Anderson Rosa also was given the Order of Pegasus in his final season. So he was very great. He was very great academically as well. And I'm sure that's something that the Hall of Fame committee will be looking at. So I would say, depending on, obviously, if Anderson Rosa is still playing as a professional 7 years from now, that's always, we have that going on right now with Sean Johnson. But I think Rosa, if I had to choose between Rosa or Dorado to go in first, I would say Rosa. The only reason Dorado would go in first would be if Rosa is not able to, because he's still playing professionally. But Dorado does deserve to be in, for the record.
Should be. Those are two great players. And one of the things we look forward to this year is find out who is the next Luca Dorado. Who is the next Anderson Rosa? Those are some of the questions that we'll be following.
You can argue that who is the third Cal Jennings? If you think about it, Luca Dorado was the next Cal Jennings.
Another great Cal Jennings there as well. So those are some of the great storylines that we'll be following all year long here on blackandgoldbanneret.com for all the latest in UCF soccer. Check, follow, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. A lot of UCF soccer post games will be there. Hopefully a fun year. We'll see if men's soccer can turn it around and get back to the NCAA tournament and contend for the Sun Belt Championship. That will do it for this edition of Night Shift. Until next time, we will have a volleyball preview down the road in the near future, as well as, of course, lots of football just around the corner. As the Scott Frost era sequel will begin against Jacksonville State. We'll have tons of coverage on that. Kyle, Jeff, and Don and the staff will have lots of football position previews going on blackandgoldbanneret.com and much more. For Bryson Turner, I'm Eric Lopez. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of Night Shift.